two quick questions for you, Andy. A very quick one and a longer one. The quick one is, if you had to pick up a different name for Tideway, what would it be? The longer one is, as a client group, I worry hugely. There's meant to be a huge spike in infrastructure spending over the next 5 years. I believe the supply chain can cope with it. I don't believe the client capacity of government can cope with it. So would that comment on the client capacity of government to deliver Highways England, high speed to Crossrail to Tideway, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah, I think we've all got challenges ahead. You know, you go right back to a position that I've heard stated that only one hybrid bill can go through government at a time. That's not commensurate with the sort of infrastructure vision that we have going forward, and so there's, if you like, capacity constraints there, which need addressing. Is it obvious that the professionals, if you like, the project management group is sufficient to address all of these going forward? It's a very real question. I think there's a lot we've got to do individually as companies to understand how can we develop the people that we've got. We're not going to magic people out of nowhere, but I think there's an awful lot we can do to accelerate the training and development of our people, and dare I say it, even give them a chance to step up and recognize that that to the extent that there may be some kind of gap and you know, underneath the 55-year-olds at the top of the industry, there's a bit of a dearth. Well, what's wrong with pushing some of the younger ones up into it? Who knows? We might even get a better result.
Obviously, in the private sector where you are, there's a completely different take on it. Is that eased? Are you able to encourage better skills into your organisation just simply because of you have to pay them more, you have to offer them more?
You know, it's not about the money. It seldom is. You've got to pay competitive, sensible rates. But you know, one of the things that we're pushing hard on Tideway is trying to understand what would be the best employer in this sector. What would our terms and conditions be? How would we treat people? How would we develop people? And the reason that I'm not concerned as a company is that I believe we're getting a lot of those things right, and we're getting a reputation for doing this bit right, and that's what we have to do. And you know, that's about attracting the best talent. It's also part of getting the right balance, and you'll not be surprised to hear me talk about gender balance. But the more we do to make, and it's not just about attracting mums and women, this is about attracting parents of young children to work for us, because we've got a flexibility that allows people to do that. And so it would be facile to think that the answer here is just pay more, because it isn't.
My experience has been that clients have done all the investment. Clients are the ones that put the money into the future. Why are we expecting that to change? Why is the supply chain suddenly got to do that? I understand the public purse has got difficult, and that's not been the answer. But why are we expecting anyone else to do that? It should be the clients leading that. Personally, absolutely. My experience with these big projects, and we've had 3 of them together, is actually no one sees them through. There's only 2 or 3 people on Crossrail who started Crossrail. Thames Link, I'm not sure. I don't think there's anyone. And even on Tideway, I think that's the biggest weakness those big projects have, is that people do not see them through.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, we've worked on 3 projects. I don't know that it's an absolute necessity to, because of the length of these projects. Yeah, what you're saying is that you need a significant percentage of people to commit to being in one place for one job for 9 years, 10 years or whatever. That's unrealistic, and so I don't think it's about the individual continuity. If the issue is, and I can understand, it's about proper handover and continuity so that you behave, because whilst we think project, we typically think in, out, job done. When you're talking about a 9-10 year project, you are talking about a company in a lifetime, and any other company would work much harder on business on continuity of trading and relationships.
But isn't that the problem with this industry, that we are still thinking about designing and constructing and then maintaining and then operating? how do you get around that? Because that is the critical, that is the problem, surely. How do you get around that?
Well, I don't think you can get around the fact that even with a project as big as Crossrail or High Speed 2, it's still got different phases and different things that need doing at different times, and different people are best suited to those. So that the natural steps in the process, I think, are always going to be there, or I think they're going to be changed dramatically by technology. But nonetheless, you've got processes to go through. It surely has to be about recognizing that on these longer jobs, there's a continuity piece that doesn't apply in a 3-year project.
But is it also about, I suppose, making the maintenance and the operation aspects of a big project like yours, I suppose, more sexy, more upfront, more important to the success of the project?
But I think you'll find that certainly the last 3 projects I've been involved in, we've had an operator there on day one. I think it wasn't necessarily a natural fit between long-term operator and constructor, if I can put it that way. But I think what is understood now is that this is a relationship that has to work, because ultimately success lies in handing it over to someone who's satisfied with it, and that I think we're getting much better at, and that's a common feature now. It's a more common feature of projects these days, I think.
Well, we'll see soon at Crossrail just how well prepared they are. Well, more questions, more points.
I'm very pleased that the discussion got on to margin, and in particular supply chain margin. We seem woefully incapable within construction of talking about profit, and I think we need to talk about it a little bit more, because there should be a commitment to the supply chain at all levels, I would suggest. You commented earlier on that you would commit, or you're likely to commit to a requirement to pay the living wage. Would you be prepared to commit to a requirement for supply chain companies to make 10% profit?
Principle's got to be right. The London Living Wage, we have committed, we've specified that, and typically on these sorts of jobs, you are only talking about the sort of welfare staff and security. Most other people do earn more, but nonetheless it's important that we get that bit right, so we've specified that across the piece. I don't know, you might be right, and maybe you've really got to cut to it and say I expect to see a minimum of this level, but that's got to be part of a bigger framework that actually allows the tiers other than tier 1 to bring their expertise to the front as well, because it's all very well for the client to work with the tier 1s and have an open collaborative thing, but if the net result is the supply chain actually doing the work, it's still having fixed price or lowest price tendering foisted on them, then we're not going to get anywhere.
But you can make a statement around how much of your bidding and your procurement is done on value, on cost, as opposed to value. You can.
Yes, we should. Yeah.
You could artificially really skew those in one direction towards value rather than cost.
And somehow or other, I think that's got to be part of the answer. I think what we've, as always, we are.
So what stops it though?
2 points. The recognition up front, I think you're going to do it, and also the understanding of how that's going to generate better value. So it's not simply saying, you know what, the answer here is everyone gets 10% and all of a sudden the world will become more productive. It's not as simple as that. We've got to understand for that to be the case, and I do accept it's chicken and egg, but with this comes the ability for all parts of the supply chain to contribute in a way that's different. It's a business model we've got to change, not just a margin issue.
But you could say we don't really care how much it costs, we just want the best thing. There's no cost measure at all, we just want the best thing.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be in business that long if I did that. I don't think if I was selling trainers that would be a massively successful strategy.
I'm not blindly asking for that sort of amount. And I do actually believe that the supply chain itself has to provide value for money. Absolutely no problem about that. And it has to be collaborative, and it has to be there has to be trust and all that.
And you've got to be in early enough.
And you've got to be in early, and you've got to be protected, because if you're going to come up with a good idea, and it is deemed to be a good idea, then the last thing I would want with our business is for that idea to be touted around. And it's as basic as that. It really is as basic as that. So I do actually accept that there has to be a trade-off, a very, very clear trade-off between provision of that sort of protection, if you like. What do you get for it? Where you get the best in the business, and you get the most value engineered product. So I think there is, but there is a formula there which we shouldn't just lose sight of. That needs to be discussed. It needs to be out there in the open, and I would like to see more discussion along those sort of lines.
Perhaps something to pick up with the ICG discussion.
No, it has to be. I think it's increasingly clear that for us to do better, we do have to get the right skill sets involved at the right time. Otherwise, all we're asking someone to do is make very minor adjustments to outcome. So we've got to get that bit right. It is part of a bigger industry model debate and drive. It is one of the things that within the infrastructure client group, out of the larger number of projects that we're pursuing, this is one that clients simply have to own. And I think we need to spend more time focusing on this more than many of the other things that we have been in the past.
The term intelligent client was used in your conversation just now. And you were talking about the connection between construction and operations and where BIM might actually play into that space. One of the things we've also talked about is standards which enable efficiency, and I think you talked about some of the standards that are coming across the Crossrail, which are enabling the supply chain to know what they've got to deliver to, so they're not reinventing the wheel. And then also picking up on the point that was just made around procurement and commercial actually drives the behaviours, and it's those behaviours that make the difference to really how we operate. So with the infrastructure client group hat on and your experience in different sectors, I just wonder whether you could comment where you thought the water sector, of which Thames Tideway Tunnel is a part, is in comparison with other infrastructure sectors in terms of its intelligent clients.
You know, I think one of the things that makes this difficult for quite a few industries is the age of the infrastructure that we're dealing with. And when we're in a world where the truth is we don't know where some of our assets are, let alone what they're made of and what condition they're in, it's quite difficult to talk about a futuristic model. It's easy when you're building a new thing. And I think it's unforgivable now to build something new and to not get this piece right from the start. The challenge, and we had this challenge on Crossrail, and I'm sure we'll have the same thing on Tideway. So the new shiny project comes along, and under its arm says, okay, there's your tunnel, and here's the BIM model, and it's perfect. What is an operator supposed to do when their asset management practices, because of the age of their asset, aren't of the same vintage? And I think the trick is to understand how we manage this progression without necessarily dragging a lot of asset owners into almost a schizophrenic approach to asset management. So I see the same challenges, and I wouldn't like to say that the rail sector is more advanced than the water sector. I'm not sure it is, but I think the commonality of very old assets is common, and there's things that therefore these different industries can learn from each other. How have you gone about dealing with an asset that you don't know exists, and how do you go about an asset, the condition of which you don't understand? And that is again is part of a way forward.
But I think what Andrew would say is that that having a digital model as the backbone of your asset enables you to more efficiently and more effectively manage and operate your infrastructure going forward.
There's no doubt.
And so that is surely an unmissable opportunity for a client which has got a very large, dumb though it may be, asset.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're not doing it. All I'm saying is at the end of the day, it's a pipe. And you can get as clever as
That's
you
a
want
big
about, yeah, but you can get as clever as you want about the asset management of a pipe. But that's not the point. The point, it's about how useful is this in operation.
Yeah.
And I'm not, we're not, it's a different challenge for us. We, as I say, it's about the total system we hand back, of which the pipe is, albeit a big and expensive part, but just a part. And what it means to us is different to handing back a Crossrail with 9 full-size railway stations and a fully operating railway. It's just different. You can't deny that.
Okay.
What would you regard as your legacy project, as you've been on Thameslink, Crossrail, and now the Thames Tideway?
Is Jesse's going to retire after this one?
Yeah, well, yeah, yes.
There isn't another big one unless you get the runway, possibly.
Right, okay, yeah.
You know, I think the thing I'm most proud of is actually being part of what I think is a change in public confidence in the ability to deliver infrastructure. That's why we've got a commission. That's why, there's a lot of us that have been involved in these big projects over the past 20 years, and I think it's that confidence and respect that's a really important legacy, and that'll do for me. I want to understand what role I can play in making that the best it can be.
One of the things which, I mean, we touched on it earlier, but of course, this project does interface with the surface, people, their lives on quite a number of points, kind of a number of critical points along the river. I mean, what do you see as the big opportunities there, other than to just create, I suppose, is it about creating a smaller footprint, or is it about really using the opportunity to develop and create a greater public realm?
We've got the issues of our activities during the construction process, and then what we leave behind, and I think there's actually an interesting theme that allows you to stitch the two together. Another really important point for me here, as you said earlier, we're very visible, unlike perhaps an Olympics, or unlike a Crossrail, where because you're in the middle of Bond Street, the thing to do is hoard it all off and hide behind it and get on with your business. We can't do that. We're massively visible. Everything we do, every barge we have is out there and people can see it. And I think that's quite exciting, because we know we need to get a new generation of people into the industry, and we've got an opportunity here to showcase what we're doing. And as our machine, wouldn't it be cool if our machines that came up the river were dressed up like transformers, and they were exciting for kids, and we just engaged young people in a very different way, and with a bit of imagination, actually sell what we're doing to a new generation of people, and to be boring about it, I think is a hell of a shame. You didn't sell Nikes by calling them shoes. You make it look more glamorous, and it's part of a lifestyle thing. But so we've got an opportunity during the construction to make an impact. We've obviously got the obligation to be the best neighbours we can be. A big part of what we're trying to do on Tideway is get done quicker. One of the challenges that with our contractors and Thames Water on the Alliance, we've said we want to knock 2 years off the job. There are 3 reasons for that: to get out of our neighbour's hair quicker, it'll cost less, and the bill payer's better off, and the river gets cleaner quicker. And what's not to like about that? But a part that is getting out of London's hair, whether that's our neighbours or London more generally. As soon as the capability that we're going to create on the river out there, which will be a 24/7 logistics, mission critical logistics operation, training some 300 more people working on the river. The sooner we finish, the sooner that 300 strong marine workforce is capable of doing something else useful for London. So I think there's a legacy there. There's then you've got the public realm piece, and I'm sure that what we've got to do there, whilst we were developing our designs to get through a planning process so we had to come up with something that was robust and right. I believe we've got the opportunity to have another round of dialogue with London about what do you actually want that 3 acres at Blackfriars to look like, and what could it be, and if we owned it in a different way rather than thought about it as a we're going to build it, no you're not, sort of backdrop. If there was a wow, here's an opportunity, what could it be for London? We might end up with a different product, and that I think is.
Yeah. Well, it does go back to what is your product? Is it a development at Blackfriars, or is it just a tunnel? Any more questions? Yeah.
Maybe go back to the previous topic, but ask it in a different way, which is more about profitability in the marketplace. Now, the skirter industry, I think, is still strategic bidding. People win by bidding low and claiming the way to a profit, which I think is nobody wins. Supply chain certainly doesn't win, clients don't win, public don't win. Maybe saying when running a business or a project, we should spend money as if it's our own. When we buy houses or we buy cars, we tend to set ourselves a budget and go out and get the best we can get for that budget. We don't decide to buy and then go out and buy the cheapest we can possibly get.
Correct. Why do we do it in business? I've got no.
People say the industry has a problem, but not on my project because I need to get the cheapest.
So what do you do? What are you doing differently?
How can we genuinely flip that?
Well, you're absolutely right. As long as we obsess about getting the lowest price in the most visible way, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. We've got to talk more about what's the benefit we're trying to get, and I think it's absolutely right. In any other world, you'd say, this is what I can afford. Now, what can I have? But when was the last time a contractor was asked that? Wouldn't that be a good start? You know, there's loads of ways of looking at this. You could quite simply say, well, take the second lowest bid. That would stop a whole bunch of shenanigans. And anyone who thinks that taking the lowest price is going to get you to a lower outturn cost is kidding themselves. But we do. And I think, again, from a infrastructure client group point of view, that is becoming a way more stable conversation about this isn't helping anyone.
Yeah.
And this has to change.
You're talking about nirvana, I think, which is alliancing reasonable profits, incentivisation, and I just wonder what role you see an open book playing in that kind of. Is there a mechanism where you can have openness between the client and contractor? Do you think that works?
Until we open our books, until we're all quite clear what's where, we're not going to know what the possibilities are. I mean, we're through the alliance, certainly on Tideway, in inviting the contractors to participate in the benefits of the total project cost, first thing we've got to do is open our books and show them what we've got in there. And the reason for wanting that to happen is it could just be that the contractors, who rightly are saying, blimey, don't worry about squeezing us down. Sort your own costs out, and that's a valid discussion. And the point should be, okay, well, help me. What can I do? And so, however you've procured it, unless we've got that openness of where all the monies are, I don't think we're ever going to really get to a sensible answer. Yes, I'm describing nirvana, but I just think there's an opportunity now, and do I think that one job's going to come on in the next 5 years where all of these magical things happen together? No, of course not. But if we can get good examples of alliancing here, if we can get good examples of a better procurement there, good examples of describing outcomes over there, we stand a chance of moving forward.
I'm just really interested in your aspiration for the 50% gender balance. I think it's very courageous and absolutely important for the industry in terms of skill shortage and getting the right people in the industry. And that in itself would be a really amazing legacy of Thames Tideway itself. And going back to the gentleman in front of this question, your own legacy. But what sort of things will we look back on as Thames Tideway having delivered in terms of new ways of approaching attracting into because it can't just be Thames Tideway succeeds and gets the target 50%, whereas actually the rest of the industry is drained.
As you'd expect, and not uniquely, we all understand the significance of the STEM effort and getting into schools and doing all that. And yes, of course, that's got to happen. And we had a Dragon's Den with 3 schools in the office this afternoon. I'm really pleased to see people putting a lot of effort into it. And that's happening more and more and more. You know, for me, the gender parity piece, in the short term, if we want to see And as I've always said, this isn't about making sure all the secretaries are female and all the senior people are still male. It's a proper gender balance in all the disciplines and levels is what I meant. And the only way, of course, we're going to do that is by attracting people from different experiences, i.e. by definition, apart from the newcomers, by definition, people already in the industry. So yes, to some degree, to get to the right gender balance across the seniorities, they're going to come from somewhere else. And you could argue, well, is the industry any better off as a result? Because it's the same players, you've just got more of a certain gender clumped in a particular area. But, even that would be a success, because for me, it would never be possible again to say you can't have proper gender balance in a project organization. Perish the thought the job might actually go better. And so I think there's look, yeah, they did it. They found ways of employing, being attractive to people such that they got the split they wanted, and they got a broader range of people. The job was delivered well. That, I think, would be a good starting point for the next project. It never would be possible again to say, that's nonsense. Because I'll be honest, when I started saying that a year and a half ago, I was told that.
When I spoke to Sadie Morgan a week ago, we talked about the word disruption, and the fact that a bit of disruption is always good. As you're looking, to change the industry in your day job, but also in ICG, I mean, what disruptive thing can you do, or can the industry do, or can leaders in the industry do to really try to change this model away from this kind of the same old status quo that we seem to be still locked in? What is that kind of key disruptive thing that you can see happening, or you can actually make happen?
Well, I think something that we're trying to encourage, and whether it's the transformational health and safety approach, or whether it's trying some of the challenges we're setting ourselves, knock 2 years off the job, 50-50 gender split, that kind of stuff. Part of it, I'm convinced, and again, I'm hoping that we can show the broader benefit of, is being daft enough to think bigger, and being brave enough to say, yes, I'm going to do that. What if I don't achieve the 2 years off? What if I've only get to 45%? Well, it's a bloody sight better than if I hadn't tried. And I think encouraging, showing it's okay to be almost heroic, and yes, have a tilt at the windmills, because you know what, if you try often enough, you'll get a better result, and that has to be part of making this industry what we all want it to be. It's not going to be about incremental change. Technology's not changing incrementally, and if we don't recognize that and make some big jumps, or it won't be us, it will be the Googles and the technology companies that will be building buildings.
Great stuff.
Thank you.